Hello, friends. Now, you know how people say, be the change you wish to see in the world? Well, I'm here to say, make the tools you wish you had, because in front of me is a set of products that makes the studio of my dreams feel quaintly archaic. Like what if your best friend had a time machine and brought back a Cybertruck to replace your minivan? This app runs laps around Premiere Rush and DaVinci Resolve for mobile. The interface is as close to a proper desktop NLE as I've seen on a tablet yet, complete with a customizable toolbar and inspector panel. All this editing in the palm of your hand is great. But isn't it just a gimmick? Once you've framed a shot and enabled the on-screen level, the phone stays level, even when you move your hands. Well, that's the question I asked myself after using Apple's cloud-assisted analytical tools for years. Take a look at this 100-year-old photo I took of my desk. They rerun it on a 13-inch tablet that doesn't need a tether to a PC or phone and costs less than half of my first DSLR. What's your dream setup? How would you use this stuff? I can't wait to hear in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked this video. Subscribe for more updates. And as always, take care of yourself and others. Keep being excellent. Bye-bye. What if I wanted to remaster it? Well, thanks to the enhanced image processing on the M4 chip, along with Apple's new photographic models trained on billions of images, you can run apps like Pixelmator Pro and Luminar to upscale, Dahaz and otherwise, refurbish aging photos. And when you're done, the fastest pro-level image encoder on any mobile device lets you export lossless JPEGs and HEIFS with minimal latency. Now, don't get me wrong. I've loved how their AI analyzes face detection, speech, sentiment, and other metrics, stuff that I could manually track in hours. But the issue is that this often requires uploading your project to a cloud server, waiting for analysis to complete, and then downloading the results. With Apple's new on-device APIs, things are different. Here's an example. Say you're shooting a talking head interview where the talent keeps their hands motionless. In the past, you'd have to identify the stable points yourself, marking them for tracking later. Now the phone's LiDAR and vision systems do the hard work, returning an array of spatial coordinates you can import into Final Cut. Another example is cinematic mode. If you shoot a scene on a smartphone, the video will come out stabilized, but the audio will still be mono. So to make the experience more immersive, you can import the video and audio separately into Final Cut and use object-based spatial audio to place the voices and ambient sounds in 3D space. Then you can preview your work on AirPods Pro and walk around to make sure the mix is balanced. It's wild how powerful these tools are considering they rerunning on a piece of hardware that fits in your pocket. It uses UWB to locate and sync each phone, whether they're charging or running wirelessly on Bluetooth. And once you're in sync, Final Cut automatically ingests each stream over Wi-Fi 7, a connection that's faster than cable, and can handle 0 to 60 frames per second live switching without dropping a beat. The result is a preview that matches your iPad's aspect ratio with tiny touch-based controls for shutter, iris, and zoom. Need to punch in a phone's display? Double tap and the lens follows your eyes. Will things really be faster and easier when you throw away all your peripheral hotkeys, big screens, and mouse shortcuts? To answer that, I shot a series of tests, comparing simple cuts and multicam edits on the iPad against the tried-and-true editing rig in my office. And what I found was surprising. My normal process involves dragging clips to a 27-inch display running Premiere Pro. I'd make cuts using a Kensington keyboard and Kensington mouse, moving footage in and out of bins, trimming using the ripple tool, and scrubbing with a shuttle knob. On the iPad, my process was pretty similar. I dragged clips into Final Cut, made cuts with the pencil keyboard and mouse, moved footage in and out of bins, trimmed using the ripple tool, and then used the jog wheel shortcut to scrub. And lo and behold, I completed tasks faster on the iPad nearly every time. Now my regular rig is hardly entry-level. Mind you, it's got a 27-inch 1:4OP display, an Xbox Series X controller, a Blackmagic ATM camera switcher, and a Mackie MCU. But that's the thing. The iPad didn't just win because it's smaller and lighter. It won because its software and hardware are so tightly integrated that you don't need to customize or configure them. Everything just works out of the box. But what I really dig is the new 3D Scene Composer, which uses Apple's new Diffusionx local model to generate custom backgrounds for your videos. It's the perfect app for shooting talking head content, infomercials, and promo videos. Except here, it's not one product. It's a whole ecosystem of things that starts with a piece of hardware that feels painfully familiar, but whose guts have been rewritten from the silicon up. The new Apple Vision Pro headset is built for collaborative remote editing. As soon as you slip it on, Final Cut launches a new floating canvas mode. Your timeline detaches into 3D space. Color wheels hover off to the right. Scopes drift left, and your thumbwheel Apple Pencil gestures become giant orbital sweeps. It's wild how precise you can be with midtones when you have a full degree of movement. Also, a big thank you to the folks at Kavarian Press who helped me build this set. Their book, The Business of Visual Effects, is essential reading for anyone wanting to understand the pipeline behind blockbuster movies. This is an M4 Silicon iPad Pro, and yes, it's thin and light, but we woe and dwell on that because you already know Apple does thin and light better than anyone. No, the secret sauce is what's inside, starting with a bunch of on-device AI silicon that makes this a genuine post-production studio in your hands. Powered by the A18X chip, 8 gigs of unified memory, and a 3nm die shrink versus last year's 5nm, which means higher transistor density, lower leakage, current, and crucially, more performance per watt. The headline feature here is the addition of 4 AI-specific hardware cores alongside the M4S8 CPU and 38 GPU cores, delivering 15 trillion operations per second of matrix math. But there are two other numbers worth noting here, 3 and 16. When combined with a couple of other new features introduced today, Apple's AI story starts to make sense. Let's start with the new version of Final Cut Pro for iPad. Now, I've been using the early access beta, and I have to tell you, the UI punches hard. Take a look at this layout. For example, it's called Stage Manager, and the idea is you have a main timeline here, an inspector panel on the right, and then a browser where you view bins, projects, and whatnot. You can also swap any of these panes for other things like scopes or color wheels. But the cool thing is, when you rotate to portrait, the layout automatically stacks vertically and adjusts aspect ratios to fit the screen. It's crazy how novel it feels to tap between stacked angles in this way, like they're living film strips. Oh, and did I mention pinch to go from a single 4K take to 3 airflow smooth layers? Original, graded, and mask isolated. All tappable for simultaneous side-by-side color matching. The grading tools themselves are all new, thanks in part to the infusion of GPU. Object recognition gives you powerful selection tools to isolate hair, sky, foreground, etc. And face detection lets you adjust skin tones interactively while maintaining skin detail. No more clipping. There are some really elegant little details here too. For instance, when you have a multicam edit, the preview window actually switches angles in sync with the timeline. On a bigger screen, it's a small thing, but on an iPad, it's glorious. Now when you finish a cut, you can export it to the desktop app using Live Activities, where Final Cut syncs the iPad and desktop timeline in real time. This allows you to transfer your work to a larger display or leverage desktop plugins like Red Giant or Film Convert without ever stopping the clock. And I think it's just a matter of time before the desktop app gets native iPad support. The 3 refers to Apple's neural processing unit, which can run 3 times as many operations per watt as previous models. And the 16 refers to the 16 times faster machine vision processing. In other words, the AI inside this thing is properly turboed for on-device inference, which means Final Cut Pro and LumaFusion can train custom models on your iPad alone. Imagine building your own stylized filter with a few hundred shots, saving it to the device, and then applying it to new footage without having to upload anything to a cloud server. Now obviously, there's a lot of AI hype out there, but hear me out. But let's move to another program that's made for touch. Okay. But what if you want to do actual offline edits in the middle of nowhere? No problem. Now let's address the elephant in the room. And this applies to the cameras too. Just take a look at the redesigned Freeform camera app. Okay, but how much of this magic happens on device versus in the cloud? Now beyond video editing, the possibilities are endless. So there you have it. The tools I dreamed of as a kid are real.